It's April 2nd, 2025. Donald Trump walks out, calls it Liberation Day, and starts rattling off tariff rates on basically every country on the planet. There's one brand sitting there thinking, we are absolutely cooked. That brand is Nike, because Nike doesn't make its shoes in America. Almost all of it is made in those exact countries Trump just hit. The tariff bill Nike is looking at? Roughly $1.5 billion. And here's the brutal part. This hit landed on a company that was already on its knees. How Nike actually got big. To understand how bad things are right now, you have to go back to the beginning, because Nike didn't start as a giant. It started with a waffle iron. Seriously. In 1971, Bill Bowerman, co-founder and track coach, poured liquid urethane into his wife's waffle maker, trying to build a lighter running sole. What came out was the waffle trainer. Crude, weird looking, but it worked. Better grip, less weight than anything on the market. That was the first piece of the Nike formula. Actually innovate something real. The second piece was signing the right athlete. Not just any athlete, someone who embodied the whole attitude. That person was Steve Prefontaine, a working-class kid from a small Oregon logging town who ran like he was angry at the world. Fearless, defiant, mouthy. He wasn't polished, he wasn't safe. And Nike loved that. He wasn't just wearing their shoes, he was their identity. Third piece, bold advertising. While Adidas and Converse were out there making friendly, approachable ads, Nike was unapologetically about winning. The name came from the Greek goddess of victory. The swoosh was aggressive, and the whole vibe was, we don't care if you like us, we care if you win. That formula, innovate, sign the right athlete, market like you mean it, is what turned Nike into a $50 billion company. It worked with running, then basketball with Michael Jordan, then golf with Tiger Woods, then soccer with Ronaldo. By the 2010s, Nike owned 38% of the entire US athletic footwear market. Untouchable, until they stopped following their own formula. The big bet that broke everything. Okay, here's where things start going sideways. It's 2017. Nike looks at how its business works and asks a pretty reasonable question. Why are we sharing our money with everyone? Every person in that chain takes a cut. So Nike is making a shoe that retails for $200, but they're only seeing maybe $120 of that. The rest is going to middlemen. So Nike launches what they called the Consumer Direct Offense strategy. The plan was simple. Cut out the retailers, sell directly to you through apps and the Nike website, keep more of the profit. They walked into the offices of thousands of partners. We don't need you anymore. They slashed wholesale accounts from 30,000 down to 20,000. This whole digital ecosystem designed to keep you inside Nike's world permanently. During COVID, when everyone was locked inside shopping online, Nike's DTC revenue hit $18.7 billion. That's more than Adidas's entire revenue that year. The dashboards looked incredible, but here's what the dashboards don't show you. The moment Nike pulled its products off those shelves didn't stay empty. Hoka came in, On Running came in, New Balance came in, and retailers didn't just put their stuff on the shelf casually. They signed contracts, built inventory cycles, trained their staff to recommend those brands. And those salespeople, who work on commission by the way, now had every reason to push Hoka over Nike. The CEO who didn't get it. In 2020, Nike does something they'd never really done before. They hire a CEO from outside the company. Every single Nike CEO before had been a lifer, people who bled the brand. But they bring in John Donahoe, a tech and consulting guy. His background was eBay and Bain Consulting. Nike insiders immediately nicknamed him the Cloud CEO. Under Donahoe, Nike reorganized its internal teams away from sports categories. A company whose entire identity was built on sports culture started operating like a generic fashion company. The designers and executives who actually understood sneaker culture started leaving. Some were poached by competitors, some just left frustrated. And with them went the innovation. New shoes stopped feeling new. It was just old colorways on old models. Jordan Retros, Air Force Ones, Dunks. All classics, sure, but you can only live on nostalgia for so long. Nike went from being a company that created culture to a company recycling its own history. Meanwhile, Hoka went from $154 million in sales in 2018 to $1.8 billion by 2024. On Running was exploding. New Balance was having a cultural moment, where Nike makes the majority of its sneakers, shut down almost overnight. By early 2022, 65% of Nike's sneaker production had stopped. By late 2022, Nike had $9.7 billion in inventory. That's the highest in company history. To move it, they started flooding discount chains, TJ Maxx, clearance racks everywhere. And that's a death move for a premium brand. Once customers get used to buying your $200 sneaker for $60 on clearance, they stop seeing it as a $200 sneaker. The brand equity just bleeds out. Retailers were slashing prices on Nike sneakers at nearly double the rate compared to just 2 years earlier. The stock dropped 20% in a single day in June 2024 after Nike warned investors about weak revenue. From its peak valuation of around $280 billion in 2021, Nike's market cap had cratered toward $60 billion. But Nike's competitors weren't Nike. Nike's identity was the swagger, the fire, the arrogance. Without it, they just became another big sportswear company. The China problem nobody talks about enough. There's one more piece of this that doesn't get enough attention: China. At its peak, China was contributing nearly 20% of Nike's total revenue. That's enormous. But something culturally shifted in China that Nike had no way to fight. A movement called Guoqiao, which roughly translates to national wave or China chic, took off. Young Chinese consumers started actively preferring domestic brands over Western imports. It became a point of national pride, and Chinese sportswear brands like Anta and Li-Ning were ready for it. By 2022, Anta had overtaken Nike to become the #1 sportswear brand in China by revenue. Think about that for a second. Nike lost the #1 spot in the world's most populous country. They've already started. There was a new Nike ad that basically returned to that aggressive, "you can't win so win" mentality. And honestly, it felt like Nike again. They're also doing things Nike would never have done before, like partnering with Kim Kardashian's Skims brand for women's apparel. That felt like a huge shift. Nike, admitting it, needed to work with people who were better at certain things than it was. And in September 2024, Nike posted a surprise bump in sales. First real positive sign in a long time. But let's be real about what Hill is walking into. The shelf space is gone and won't come back easily. Competitors are stronger and more entrenched than they've ever been. China is probably a long-term loss at this point. And now there's a $1.5 billion tariff bill sitting on top of everything. Nike isn't going to disappear. They're still 4 times the size of Adidas. But the road back is genuinely hard. They traded decades of brand strength for a few years of margin efficiency. And that's not a quick fix.